In the last few weeks, we've had several reports about killings and killings and killings. Several more communities have been attacked, several kidnappings. Almost on every Sunday, we hear reports of churches being attacked and of communities being ransacked. Hundreds or even sometimes thousands of people running for refuge. As a matter of fact, last week we had reports of people in Nasarawa State, in Benue State, in Kwara State, and several other states running for protection from their villages and their settlements. Of course, people have spoken about these problems day in, day out. And one of the areas that people have suffered so much and spoken so much is the area in Borno State, where 279 schoolgirls were attacked, and up to date, we are told that 80 of them are still in the captivity of Boko Haram. Now, what is really happening in the Middle Belt or in Christian communities in the North? What really is the situation? Is it true that the reports that we're hearing, as some people in government say, are false, or that these problems are actually in existence and are increasing or have remained the same as some community leaders have spoken? Well, today we have the privilege of speaking with one of the most prominent Nigerians on the issue of conflicts. He is the president of the Middle Belt Forum. The person I'm speaking about is Dr. Pogu Bitrus, scientist from Borno State, who has been the forefront of talking about the problems in the Middle Belt. Doctor, you're welcome. Thank you, sir. Well, it does appear that the situation in your state, let's start from there before we move to other areas of your community, that is Chibok, is still as volatile as it was before. Last week, we were told that some people, including prominent vigilante leaders, were killed and several people kidnapped. What is actually the situation in Chibok?
There is heightened activity of Boko Haram in and around Chibok. And there is an attack on at least, let's not put it daily, but nearly every 2 days, there would be an attack on a particular village. People need to know that the Chibok local government of Borno State is predominantly Christian. And each village they go to, what they do usually is to attack the church, burn the church, and then start burning houses. And the heightened attack, which is not just around Chibok, but across the Middle Belt and in Borno. Because we remember after Ngoshi, we had Bulka, we had areas of Benue. So all areas around Maiduguri, Kondoga, etc., all were attacked when Chibok was also attacked. And just as I said, nearly every day or two, there would be an attack. Kautigari was attacked. We lost 12 people, including the vigilante commander, which you rightly pointed out. We had an attack on a place called Kwapun. And some few days ago, just 3 days ago, an attack on Gatamarwa, where we also lost another vigilante commander. They ambushed him along with his team and killed him. So these attacks can be attributed not only, considering Chibok, but the whole of the Middle Belt can be attributed to the political tempo in this country. If you look back to 2014, before President Jonathan was kicked out of office, there was heightened attack by Boko Haram elements. At that time, the Fulani militia hadn't taken roots in many of the parts of the Middle Belt, but they had already started. And the heightened attack was so prominent that with the abduction of Chibok girls, etc., Jonathan lost his mandate back second term. We don't know if the attacks now, which has been heightened, is also associated with such political moves. We cannot say. But there is an serious increase in the tempo and viciousness of attacks across the Middle East.
Well, you've spoken about the possible political motivations, but some people would argue that these problems have resisted. They have been there for a very long time. They were there under Jonathan. Like you said, they were there under Buhari and even increased during Buhari's time. And this might just be a continuation that the bandits or the outlaws are increasing in their activities and not necessarily because of political calculations.
Yeah, one could argue in that direction that could just be a natural thing, maybe associated with their normal expansionist tendency. But you know, there are two outstanding issues which we can consider as variable, increasing the tempo and viciousness of these insurgent groups. One, we know that the Americans have indicated interest in coming to Nigeria, and some of them have already had some technical staff in Nigeria already. Some have stationed themselves in Maiduguri and other parts of the north. And number two, what I already highlighted, which is the political angle. Now, looking at these two, you can see that there is a likelihood, not just to say that, yes, insurgency will certainly develop, but there is a likelihood of associating the increase in tempo with either the political atmosphere, which is taking us closer and closer to election, or the of the American, which, of course, resulted from the outcry of Christian communities on the issue of genocide, Christian community. If we this second can clearly say that yes, it is a serious interest in attacks on Christian communities in the Middle Belt. Chibok is a part of the Middle Belt. If you look at the Williams Commission map, you will find that Chibok and the Margi area of Borno were captured as part of the Middle Belt region of that time. So this heightened attack should be seen or could be seen, let me put it this way, as a resultant of one of these two variables or both of them.
Okay, now before we leave Chibok, there's the story that has not been denied that we still have over 80 girls that were kidnapped in 2014 in the hands of the Boko Haram. What is really this? What is the status?
This situation is unfortunate, but the most unfortunate and disturbing is the fact that we have 18 of these girls who have been rescued. Complete story is not so clear, but one thing we know is Governor Zulum refused to release these girls to their parents, but left them with their so-called Boko Haram husband, and even provided accommodation for them in a housing estate in Maiduguri. The governor has refused to even involve the parents in any discussions with regards to whether or not the parents are willing or were willing to let children or their wards stay with these Boko Haram captors who married them forcefully. Now, this is an unfortunate development. And out of the 80, which you are talking about, 18 are around, married to Boko Haram operatives, accommodated by the governor of Borno State, refused contact to their parents. And we can use that to deduce or infer that the governor is complicit in the whole thing. Otherwise, why would we stop or refuse or stop these girls from getting access to their parents to decide freely whether or not they want to remain as wives to their Boko Haram captors or go back to their parents? Zulum has questions to ask.
Well, still, let's move a little bit away from that Chibok. Yesterday, reports of killings, churches again attacked last Sunday in Kaduna State and demand for the payment of some money before members of some churches that were kidnapped will be released. Is it because the churches are always willing to pay that they have now become targets of attacks every Sunday? Or what could be responsible for this?
If we look at Boko Haram ideology, they didn't hide their ideology. It was spelled out clearly by late Shekau, if he's late. And Shekau said they are fighting a religious war. They are fighting jihad. And to them, Christians and believers are targets. And that ideology hasn't changed. The herdsmen militia or the Fulani militia, on the other hand, is one and the same with the Boko Haram, took on that ideology. And eventually, when they realized monies were difficult to cover up for monies coming from sponsors, they had to find ways of sponsoring, of funding their operation. As a result, they now resulted to kidnapping for ransom. It wasn't because government was willing on its part to pay ransom for the rescue of people, and it became a trade not only by the Boko Haram but by other criminal elements within in the society who find it lucrative as a way of making money. But for now, what we can say is this criminal element, the insurgents, Boko Haram, use ransom to oil or fuel the engine of their operations, because monies coming from sponsors has become a very difficult thing, because people, so many eyes are out there trying to where money is put to or where how they get money. So the ransom thing has become a source of funding. And irrespective of whether Christian or not, it has become a source of funding. And the fact that they attack Christians within the Middle Belt, being a predominantly Christian area, and use that to fund their activity. We know that they attack non-Christians also in Northwest, especially indigenous houses. But it's unfortunate that the government has allowed this payment of ransom to become something that communities have adopted as ways out, since no true rescue happens through government sources. And the locals are helpless, and the only way they can survive to get their relatives back is by paying the ransom. The insurgency ransom to facilitate, support themselves to attack more communities with the resources they collect through ransom. So it's like the ransom element is reinforcing that. And of course, the churches every Sunday vulnerable. That is correct. Now, moving forward, I want to ask you, what do you think? Why has it been difficult for the communities in the Middle Belt to defend themselves? One of the problems is we have majority of these communities are Christian in nature. Christianity teaches obedience to government and to governance, teaches submission to rule of law, etc., etc. And because of that, Christians haven't gone the way, hope to say, let's arm ourselves and fight back. Not only to defend, but to even go after the attackers. But I believe things are changing. This is why I'm saying that any community, look at history. You can't be attacking, killing people, and then they stay docile for so long. Government has failed. We don't have to go into probing that, since government has not been able to protect even the military, let alone the civilian population. So there is failure in government, of government. The people in the Middle Belt, whether be they Christian or Muslim or animist, they should wake up and find ways of defending themselves. Yes, there are arms that can be legally acquired, but if the pushing goes beyond some level and the government allows these criminals to carry arms, why shouldn't people also acquire arms and defend themselves and even go after the criminals? I think it is time we start thinking seriously.
Yeah, but someone will argue that the generally availability of arms in the United States, for instance, that is causing these attacks in several communities. So is it really advisable to be advocating that people should harm themselves?
Our situation is different from the situation in the United States of America. Americans came through lots of things, civil war, etc., etc. They produce their own arms, and the culture started right with using of arms as a norm, right from when we watch the cowboy days of America's development. This has been the norm. But see, you cannot, unless a body is done, take just stay because some few cases we hear. And we hear it because in the American society, everything, nothing goes hidden. In Nigeria, many things can happen and you will not even hear about it. So we have reached a stage when I pretend we have advocated for state police, for even county police. And the intention is if government cannot provide the legal sources of defense for the people, that is through state police and county police, then the people have to rise up and defend themselves because the Constitution also allows for self-defense. There are arms that are legally allowed. You can get a shotgun and seek for a license from the Commissioner of Police. Today we have vigilantes, we have what we call them, hunters, and even the government has started to establish what they call forest guards. These people, they are armed. The civil defense, they are armed, but they are all federal government entities.
Okay, let's move on to the politics. You spoke about politics, political motivations, perhaps foiling the resurgence of attacks on communities. You spoke about the possibility that this will be linked to the situation that happened in 2014 when APC came together to take the Goodluck Jonathan out of office. Now, increasingly, it does appear that the middle part is not, the economy is very, it's not as relevant as it used to be in Nigeria's politics. Why is it so? And why do you think this will not be the same situation in 2027?
I can beg to disagree with the fact of being not as relevant. I think the performance of the Middle Belt as a people in the 2023 elections, when the Belters decided to support Peter Obi, was quite commendable, and I believe we can even improve on that one. Middle Belt has established itself as a force, I believe, in the polity, and irrespective of who would come, to enjoy the support of Middle Belters, I believe that person would get phenomenal support that would be better than what happened in 2023 for Peter Obi. We still believe strongly that there's room for Middle Belters to assert themselves, even determining political direction, not being an appendage to anybody or any in this country. And I believe that in 2027 or come 2027, the peoples of the Middle Belt would come together and unite and look at the candidate that would serve their purpose in terms of restructuring this country, making life better for the ordinary person, especially in the Middle Belt, and give nominal support as a collectivity to such a leader. And I think the politics in the Middle Belt will not be the same again. The Zazao, that is the Southern Kaduna people, Plateau, this I'm talking about the northern fringes, the southern part of Bauchi, but it goes beyond that because the Kare people as a nationality are part of the Middle Belt. Even other nationalities in Yobe, and then part of southern Boko, Gombe, going up Adamawa, and then going to the southern part of the north, we constitute a phenomenal population, not a small one. That population, if really handled, can determine who becomes president in Nigeria. So all the politics that have been played in the past, which the North or the far North has used the Middle Belt to beef up its population and to use same for political dominance and propaganda, that is over. Now the Middle Belt has come to declare itself as an entity capable of producing adequate votes to be able to produce the kind of president we need in this country. So just wait and see, you'll see what this Middle Belt is capable of doing.
Yeah, Mr. President, that is more easily said than done. You talked about the 2023 election. If you look at the results of the election, the statistics for the North Central, and they even include parts of the Northeast and Northwest that you consider to be part of the Middle Belt, their votes were simply scattered between Peter Obi, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Vice President Atiku Abubakar. It was of no effect because we were just scattered among the three.
Yes, the mobilization was not adequate, and people haven't gone taken out psychologically from the past, where the North continued to use the Middle Belt as an appendage. But I think given what happened and the fact that that was just a beginning, I believe the performance would be better and the direction would be more determined now than before. And I can assure you that we'll be more united in terms of supporting a particular person that will serve our interests, because the Middle Belters, given the security situation that affects us more than others, given the fact that we are marginalized in so many ways, both in the North and nationally, people will now come to the realization that uniting a common goal would help us better than being divided. I can assure you, 27 would show a better performance towards our choice candidate, especially at the national level, than 2020.
Well, let's leave it there. In the last 20-something minutes, we'll be speaking with Dr. Pogu Bitrus, the president of the Middle Belt Forum. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you.